Hello, this is Steve from Beato's Leatherworks. Today's project is this Dubuque, New York boots. And it's seen better days. Now basically this construction is a Blake construction where it's stitched from the inside out. It's not a Goodyear welted shoe. Okay? So we're going to remove everything. We're going to put a new welt on there, glue-on welt, a leather sole, and then we're going to add mini lugs to it. Okay, let's get started. Alright, so basically this is all just glued on construction. It's got stitches on there. Maybe it's stitched together, but sure doesn't look like it. Actually, I am wrong. It is Blake stitched. So let's cut these stitches right here. But this is this material right here. It's just not very good material. As you can see, it's just literally falling apart in my hands. Not good at all. Some type of a polyurethane, mold injected. Now the back of the heel is just, it's glued. It's just, there's nothing to it. Some nails in it, but the problem is that, see these nails they put in there? It just goes into the hollow heel. Not really holding on to anything. I mean, if it was, I wouldn't be able to pull it off my hands. But we're going to make it better. Now, this is not a too bad, the shoes aren't too bad, the boots. They're in pretty good shape. But it's not the top, you know, top of the line constructed boot, you know. So we're just going to push the nails in the, because they're nailed from inside, we're just going to push them through to pull them out from inside. There's always one that is stubborn about it. Once we get done with it, it'll be structurally very sound. Now these original soles have a thin welt that goes all the way around. You see the stitches on there? That's just for looks. That's just a glue-on welt. We call that a fake welt. So we're going to replace that with a leather one. This is made out of paper basically. It just falls apart, unfortunately. So we'll replace it with a leather one, and then that way it'll be much more durable. What we're going to do is we're going to put a welt all the way around, then we're going to put a leather sole, and then we're going to add a mini lug sole, which is something like that, which is rubber, Vibram rubber. It's very durable. So once it's done, it's going to be nice and structurally sound. You guys are going to get many, many years of wear out of it, so we won't have any issues of the sole falling apart on him. Alright, let's continue. So this is the welt. See how the stitches are there? This is a leather welt. This comes by the yard. We just cut it down to whatever length we need. Obviously we need two of them, right and left. Heels, $40. And we're going to score this a little bit just to clean off that old glue so we can get a good bond with that. Okay. You got to be careful when you're taking a shoe like this apart, where you have the uppers folded over and glued onto the footbed. If this area here, if the uppers come loose and you don't put it back exact same spot, it's going to get either tight or loose, and it's going to alter the feel of the fit of the inside. So you've got to be really careful when you're taking it apart to put it back together that you don't actually change the size of the shoe. You don't want to do that, because that's the reason we're spending the time and the customer's spending the money to make it fit same as what it was. Now, the customer will have to go through a break-in period once we're done, because you're altering the bottom of the shoes and it's going to feel different, but it's not going to feel uncomfortable. Okay, so just a matter of adjusting to the new sole, that's all. Almost like a new shoe. It's no big deal. So the idea of it is not to change the size so the customer can't wear it anymore. We're just applying a little bit of glue on here, not on the whole welt, just on the jagged area. There's lots of ways of people putting glue on the welts like this. Some people tape that off so they don't get any glue on the stitched area. I don't do that. Everybody does it differently. Alright, we're going to let that dry. When we come back, we'll hammer it on. Alright, we're back. Now, placing the welt is going to dictate the shape of the sole, so you got to kind of be careful on where you put that. This is just kind of, I press it down temporary until I take a look at the shape of it, make sure everything is good. Then I can hammer it down. Hey, how you doing? How you doing? That's my camera malfunctioning. Oh. Okay, pretend you didn't see that, alright? What are you laughing at me, T? What's wrong with you? Mr. T is laughing at me. I like to leave the bloopers in, you know? Kind of gives it a personal touch. Alright, so this is kind of a rough idea of what it would look like. Make sure don't forget that we still have the old sole that we can kind of get an idea of what it's gonna, how wide it's gonna be. And you can move this. Okay, give it some shape. Now this side here, about the outside here, is a little bit, it gets a little too far out. Now if that's the case, you can peel it back, right? You can put a little bit more glue to glue it back down. So it's not really permanent until the leather sole comes on top and it gets stitched together. So let that sit for a minute. Now here, basically, when you have the ends coming together, sometimes you can butt them like this, and sometimes you overlap them. You skive the edges. And when you overlap it, you're not going to really see.
I'm going to go.
Okay, Jennifer.
And then I'll see you on Friday.
Okay, you got it.
Thank you so much.
You're
Bye.
welcome. Bye. That was Jennifer, who helps me out with my tailoring. Lord knows I need all the help I can get. So basically skive the ends here. Okay. And put a little bit of glue. Now, some manufacturers, they don't really do that, and there's a big gap left on there, which is not cool. I don't like the way this heel is looking. Once you establish this, once you establish the shape, you can grind it down and then start adding the leather sole to it. Check that real quick. Oh, it looks much better. Cool. Okay, let's take a look, see. See the old piece and then, well, the ends right there. Looks cool. Alright. Alright, step one done. Alright, so as you can see, I put cork right in the middle here, right? Basically, the cork acts as the kind of filler to make the surface smooth again, because when you're stepping from inside, you don't want to feel the ridges of the uppers when they're turned under, you know? It has a little bit of ridges right on the side, and you don't want to feel that, so the cork kind of levels the surface out. Now, we're going to use house leather for this job because we're going to cover that leather with this. Doesn't really make sense to do anything higher quality because it's just covered up. Alright, now we're going to squeeze all the edges where the welt is kind of sticking up to kind of give it the flat, get rid of the air pockets. And then once this is done, we're going to put it in the press to kind of give it some shape. Alright. As you can see, it's getting there. Now this is just a rough shape right here. Even the welt area is still the rough shape. We're going to have to still sand it and trim it and make it look good again. So we've got the soles on here. We roughly trimmed it. Okay. Now you still have the template of the old soles to give it a rough idea if you're still on track or not. Okay. It's not going to be 100%, but very close to it. Now it's time to put the sole on. Now it comes in a straight line like that. I kind of do things a little different, you know. So you got to be careful though. These soles, they've got to be centered right to this, you know, this size here. If it's a little bit off, right or left, it's not going to look good. And again, it's just visual. It's nothing structural, right? But try to get that centered as best as possible so it'll look good after it gets done. Just visually, you know, looking at it and feeling it out. You know, you got your fingers underneath here, just kind of doing that. That'll give you an idea if it's the same equal amount of distance on the right and left sides. So while that's ready, we went ahead and glued the leather heel base to the top lift. Now, this is not a Vibram top lift. This is called Tank. You see that? Tank. This is basically, I shouldn't say a knockoff, but it is a pretty good product. Vibram makes the top lifts like that, but they're very thin, right? So, I don't know. I think that I like them, but the thickness is not, it's not very, the thinness I should say, I just don't like that. If it was the same thickness as this, I would probably use that. But Vibram is my #1 go-to rubber soles and heels. I use it a lot. It's a good company. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? So now at this stage we can kind of get an idea of what it's going to look like. It's getting there slowly but surely. Once we sand this together, glue it, I'm going to stitch it, put that on, and we're going to work on the uppers a little bit. Yeah, that's pretty bad. The other one's worse than this one. Okay, at this stage, you know, a couple of ways of doing the job, right? We can go ahead and secure the sole on with a stitch and then cover it up with the mini lug soles, or we can glue it on and stitch everything together. You know, some pros and cons, you know, of either job. If we stitch the sole and then cover it up with the sole guard, let's call it a sole guard, that's going to basically protect the sole, the stitches, okay? And if the sole wears down, you can get this replaced after it wears out. Well, you know, I decided to do the other way. I decided to stitch it all together. It just to me is a little bit more secure, even though we glue it down as best as we can. These rubber soles tend to peel back at the toe, and I'd hate for that to peel after I'm done with it and have the customer come back. Now what we'll do is we'll countersink the stitches, you know, that way it won't break off as soon as they start wearing it, you know. Either way it could have been done. We'll go ahead and trim it again, and then we'll open the channel to countersink it. This is a McKay auto lock McKay machine, also called an Blake stitch machine. Basically, it goes inside like that, the shoe, and then it stitches all the way around. The outsole stitcher stitches from the outside. Okay, so this is what we call Blake stitch. Something's caught up in there. It's not advancing it as easy as it should. And that's it. Now everything's kind of secured together. This is not going anywhere. I mean, by the time that the sole wears out to get to the stitches, it'll be a long time, so no worries about that. Now we can put the heel, balance it, and then trim all around the edges, and then we'll start working on the uppers. Alright, so we've got the shank colored in just a little bit. I always tend to hammer the edges just to get the air pockets out. Okay. Now, with this one, just like it was before, it was nailed from inside. But the difference between their job and my job is going to be nailed, secured to a leather base. With their job, it was just hollow. The nails kind of went in there and weren't really holding anything. I mean, you saw me peel it off with my hands. This is a tack hammer because you've got to be able to, this is kind of difficult. This is a French hammer. It's kind of difficult to get in there, you know, going to hit the uppers. With this tack hammer, it's a lot easier. Now, upholsterers use this also. They have a magnet at the tip, so they tap the nail and the magnet catches it, and then and they hammer it on. Would work on this one too if I rubbed it in the magnet. I'm just making the holes. It's easier when the holes are made. You can kind of get in there. Alright, these are threaded nails, or ring shank nails. Now there's another term for it that one of my viewers sent me an email. I forgot what it was. I've never heard of it, but he says that's what they're called also. I'm like, that's cool. So it's taking shape, okay? So once we get this done, once we sand the edges, then I'll show you guys a little bit. You know, we'll start sanding the uppers a little bit, trying to get that a little better. All right, so we got we got the work done for the soles. Okay, we still got to clean it up a little bit. So now we move on to the uppers. Basically, I use a little bit of turpentine to just wipe down the surface. Nothing really major, just removing that excess dirt that's on there. Some old polish. Now at times the buildup is a lot, then I'll go to acetone if we're really stripping the uppers, if we're changing the colors or adding color to it. But something like this works just fine. Just removing that surface dirt off there. If it's got wax on the surface, you can take a heat gun or a hair dryer, set it on hot, and then just kind of run over it, and the wax will melt. You'll see, you know, that way it's evident there's still wax on there. So there's not much buildup on this boot. Now we've got some scratches in the toes. I normally get like a 600 grit sandpaper and just literally sand the scratches down. Now some of them are a little deep, and we usually let the customer know, you know what, look, it's not going to look brand new. Of course we'll do the best we can, but it's just not going to be brand new looking. So I usually call it presentable. Now this is 1500 grit, right? So slowly, I was looking for my 600 grit paper because this is the one I have in my hand. It's a little old. Well, it's alright, let's give it a shot. Once you sand this down, then you gradually go work your way to the 1500. Now you can't do this with all leathers, okay? I know I'm showing you guys this, but you have to kind of make the call on what type of leather it is. If you've never tried it before, try on a small spot where it's not so obvious. You don't want to ruin a shoe or a boot by your inexperience. You always have to practice and try on small other stuff like practice shoes or something if you really want to try it. Alright, so this is going to take a while, so I'll come back to show you guys what it looks like. Alright, let's continue. Now the other boot is going to be a little bit more difficult to do because this has really bad scratches on there. But we'll try to make it work. Now, I've got some Phoebing's oil dye. This is a show brown. This is not dark brown, but it's good enough. Now, again, not every application will call for this type of, you know, dye work. If you're lucky, that the color will match. This is a bit darker, but it'll be fine. Now once it's on there, I like to buff it when it's wet. So the idea behind that is that you try to kind of crush that surface of the leather when it's wet to get a smoother finish. Some people let it dry, some people do it different ways. I mean, there's lots of different ways of doing it. Now after you apply the dye, you can still see that some areas still need sanding. It's not too bad. I mean, it's much better than what it was. You still gotta remember, you gotta let this dry. You gotta polish it still. You gotta condition it. So you get the idea. Just have to go over it a couple times to make sure to get as smooth as possible. It's getting there slowly but surely. I keep losing my sandpaper. Okay, let's cut another small piece out. This is almost like wet sanding because the dye is still wet. Not too bad. We'll burnish the toe a little bit dark towards the end, and that'll kind of blend in a little better. All right, let's continue. Now you see how much I sanded that off, right? I know it looks kind of rough, but it's just kind of a surface sanding. Now there's a couple of spots here that are pretty deep. I don't know how much of that I'm going to be able to make, you know, smooth. We're going to try. And there's still some scratches right there. Just gonna see it or not. But again, I mean, we're gonna make it presentable, you know, not 100%. It's gonna be impossible, some of the deep scratches, because you don't want to sand it too much. Then it's gonna start damaging the leather if you sand it too much. So there's a fine line where, you know, how far you can take the you know, top sanding. So a little bit more on that curved scratch right there. All right, let's continue. I use sponges to apply creams on. Oh, what am I using here? Where's the lid? Hold on. This is the Saphir number 5. I had applied some conditioner to it previously. I missed that step. And then I'm going to apply another coat after I put this on here. We'll let that sit for a minute, and then we'll go ahead and buff it. So I use old toothbrushes, okay? I never throw anything away. Seems like I'm always recycling things. This is just to get to the cracks right there at the welt area. Some of them are harder bristles, some of them are softer. It does the trick pretty good. Cool. Alright, let's continue. It's not too bad. Now you can spend more time on the toe and the back of the heel with some wax buildup to get that nice shine. They call that a mirror gloss shine. Well, this isn't that kind of a job. This is basically your full sole and heel job. I think it turned out pretty good actually. I'm happy with it. Now the conditioner I use is Big 4. Okay? This job was $285. Some people say, oh, you can buy a new pair of shoes for that. You're right, you can buy a new pair of shoes, but the customer didn't want to. Thank God. Or else my kids won't be eating. Alright, let's continue. Alright, just remember, if you guys want some information about my shop and my address and all that, go to About right here. And then it'll have everything you need. Company name, address, phone number, Instagram, Facebook, telephone number, email address. And if you're going to be shipping in work, click the shipping form right here. Fill that out and ship it with your item. Alright, let's continue. Alright, thanks for joining me. I really had fun on this project. I mean, the boots turned out pretty cool. Much better than what they were. I mean, look, to boot New York is not a bad boot, okay? They may not be using the top of the line material on the bottom, but the uppers, if you take care of them, maintain them, they'll come back very well. Don't forget that leather it comes from a dead animal, okay? We all know that, but it's a living product. It needs oils, it needs conditioners, it needs polishes to maintain that suppleness, to maintain that look. So all you got to do is once in a while just keep it up with the creams and the polished conditioners, and your footwear should last for many years to come. Now this isn't 100%. You see some of the indentations right there? These are some of the deep scratches that were there. I mean, I couldn't sand the surface to the top surface too deep, or else it's going to ruin the leather. So other than that, I mean, they turned out pretty good. Much more presentable than what they were. That's all we had to do. You know, it wasn't really here to refinish the uppers. That was just part of the job. The customer didn't say, okay, I want the surface to be smooth as possible. Basically brought them in for resoling, rehealing, and taking care of the uppers a little bit. But I just went ahead a little bit, you know, step further to kind of get rid of those scratches so it'll look much more presentable. All right. Thank you for joining me. Please share as much as you want. Any comments you got? You have any comment about a particular job, please email me, betos@yahoo.com. All right, we'll see you again next time. Take care.